Hey, profs. Welcome on in. My name's Rob Lightfoot, proud two-time alum of Marque Allen College of Communication, class of 2000-2001. This is Beyond the Brown and Gold.
I'm Jessica Kennedy. I'm the co-host here, also a two-time proud Rowan alum, class of 2008 from the Marque Allen College of Communication and Creative Arts, and 2015 from the College of Education. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Rowan Radio 89.7 WGLS FM presents Beyond the Brown and Gold, a show that highlights the lives and memories of Glassboro State and Rowan University alumni. Now, here are your hosts, Rob Lightfoot and Jessica Kennedy.
All the way from San Antonio.
All the way from San Antonio.
Comes 1991 alum, Dr. Marque Allen.
They do things bigger in Texas over there.
Yeah. Foot and ankles, too?
Yeah.
Do you think the feet and ankles in Texas are bigger than they are here?
I think so, actually. I think that's what they're known for. It's like, some states have like state flowers or birds and stuff, and they just are known for their foot and ankles.
They're at least known for Dr. Allen, who is board certified in both foot surgery and in rear foot, which is an ankle. I didn't really even know that an ankle was considered a rear foot. And reconstructive surgery by the American Board of Foot and Ankle Surgery. Yeah, he was a 1991 alum from Glassboro State. He then went on to Temple to complete his medical degree, and he has done a lot of things since he has left campus.
And he works for the San Antonio Spurs organization, or actually, they're connected to the Spurs. He doesn't work for them.
Actually does a lot of consulting for many different sports teams. He's training. He does research. He's published quite a few educational things. Really, we don't get into too much of the professional. We talk a lot about Glassboro State, how he got here, what he's up to, and kind of the unique path of finding yourself, I would say. So I have to say that we are very lucky because we've had a decent amount of alums travel to see us.
Yeah, and we have another one now.
Yes, we have had somebody from California, but now we have somebody from big old state of Texas. Texas forever.
As we like to call it, the great state of Texas.
Yes,
all right.
Thank you for coming all this way to hang out with us. Wasn't the only reason you came.
No, it wasn't. But honestly, anytime that I get a chance to come back to New Jersey, Philadelphia area, which I'm originally from, I always come back to the campus in some form or fashion. Sometimes it's formal, and other times I just drag my wife along and say, I'm just going to go drive through the campus. There's something about reminiscing and being here because it brings you back to a point in your life where you were. When you're in college, life is great. Life has innocence to it. As you get older, we have life. We have challenges. We have just anything that comes with it. So there was just such a state of innocence here. And so as I come back at different times, I get a chance to just kind of relive it, and then also get a chance to appreciate the evolution of the university. And I follow it pretty closely, to be honest, on the social media platforms, the internet, and such. So I have a really good finger on the pulse of what's happening, and so it's really nice to be able to view it from a distance. And then it's another thing to actually come and see it coming to fruition in person. It's fantastic.
So let's set the stage a little bit about where and how you got here, where you grew up, and how you sort of came to Glassboro State College at the time, right? You're 91, so.
It's an interesting story. I will definitely say that I was not supposed to go to college. No one in my family had ever gone to college. Father didn't graduate from high school. My mother graduated at that time from beauty school. And, they were hardworking, blue-collar folks. As I grew up, I have one younger sister also. And, college was not for me. Or it wasn't supposed to be. I went to school at Overbrook High School. And at that time, my academics weren't really anything that was put before me. I do remember taking a test sometime in around 9th or 10th grade, and I do remember the counselor looking at me after taking it, and he said to me, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're really underachieving here." And I said, "Okay." He said, "You have an IQ of about 143. And I said, "I don't know what that means."
Yeah, tell me, because I don't know.
I don't know what that means. Yeah. Evidently, it supposedly means that I have potential to be bright. I don't know. At that point, I didn't really think about it, and
that's why we don't know about it.
Yeah, because I was completely underachieving, and but I was having a good time. I had great friends. I had a really great time. I had such I look back to growing up. I grew up in Lindenwold area. And I just had the best friends and families over there. And interestingly enough, I think why we all had such a special relationship is because we all needed each other. in hindsight, all of our families were low income. And we all needed each other. So we didn't have time to worry about all these differences between us and such, because we all needed each other. We were all part of the village. To this day, I have close relationship with friends now that I've known for 40 years. But going back to high school, again, I was put into a path of, you're just going to go vocational. And actually, I was supposed to go to the vocational school, and I was set up to become a welder. The only reason I didn't go is because I was having too good of a time with all my friends at the high school, so I never went. And then when we were graduating, I remember going to the guidance counselor, and I was asking him, I said, so where's my class rank? And I remember him saying to me, he goes, you don't really want to know. Because it doesn't really mean much. And I said, okay. So I found out that I was actually 303 out of 309. Now, fortunately, when I had a 1.67 GPA, so
for people who don't know, that's not good.
We're looking at a 4 is pretty solid.
You know what? It was pretty good at the time. Now
it worked for you.
Now
it felt good for you.
In hindsight, had I graduated a year later, I wouldn't have met the state requirements to graduate. But that year, I got in. I'll never forget. They bring us all into picture this now. I don't imagine they do this now. They bring us all into the auditorium, the graduating class, and the vice president and our vice principal gets up there and says, if we do not call your name, you should go to the president's office or the counselor's office, right? So basically they're saying if we don't call your name, you're not graduating. And so, of course, my name begins with an A, and I think there was 2 others in front of me because we always shared the same homeroom. And when he said my name, I was ecstatic. I didn't know what to expect, but I made it. I made it. And but after that, I had no idea what I was going to do. None. I was having fun. It was the summer. I had a car that I had purchased. Friends of mine, and my one friend, Carl, who's my best friend to this day. Carl was a year older than me, and Carl actually had a lot of athletic potential. His family, and probably his brother, even to this day, in being involved in sports medicine, is probably the best well-rounded high school athlete I've ever seen in my life. His name was Ken Moore. Carl got recruited by Gloucester County. Now, we lived in Camden County, but he got recruited by Gloucester County to run track there. Now, the connection is that you're a cross-country coach. Now, Ringo Adamson was coaching at Gloucester County back then, and Ringo knew these other guys from running track. So he recruited Carl to come to Gloucester County. Carl's car broke down, or so he tells me, but I am pretty sure that Carl didn't have any gas money. And so he asked me if I could drive him to Gloucester County College to enroll. And I said, okay, sure, I'll take you. So I get there, and I'm walking around, and when I'm looking around, I'm seeing all these people. And I'm going, gosh, there's a lot of girls here. This is really something. And so he and I are talking, and Carl, he goes, you should come here too. And I'm like, really? Can I come? He goes, listen, this is great. You come here, you sign up for classes, you get these Pell Grants, and they give you money, and you go to school. I'm like, well, hell, I can do that. Never, now, mind you, I never took an SAT. I never even saw algebra in high school. Never saw it.
I saw it, but I didn't
really
see
it.
No.
And so college to me was not anything on my radar. So at this point, it was an extension of going into something social. So I sit down and I sign up, and Carl's kind of where you are. And I said, well, what are you taking? He goes, well, I'm going to do some criminal justice. I said, oh, Lord, well, you've been involved with it enough. You should know. No kidding. And both of us were so naive. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do with our lives at that point. And the lady who's signing us up, she goes, well, no, you have to take the basic skills test. And I said, okay, so that's not a problem. So I do that, and now they basically found out I didn't know much of anything. And in hindsight, I think I stopped learning when I got kicked out of Catholic school in 5th grade. I went to St. Agnes Catholic School in Blackwood, and midway through the 5th year, they told my mom, please don't bring him back.
What were you up? I got to know. How do you get kicked out of? You get kicked out of 5th grade? What were you up to, Mr. Marque Allen?
Well, I got kicked out of kindergarten also, if you ask my mom.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is where I lived also in Florida, because when I didn't make it through school, I would have to go stay with my grandmother somewhere else, and that was in Florida to finish out the year. Okay. I do remember the kindergarten incident. The kindergarten incident was...
The kindergarten incident of what? 84?
Yeah. So I remember that one. That's when I crawled out of a window and escaped the classroom and went home. And that didn't go over too big.
I mean, that sounds like a supervision problem, not a Mark problem.
Well,
right?
that was also like, was it a 3rd floor building?
It was actually 2 floors. It was actually 2 floors. And so I had to go finish there. When I was in the Catholic school, because my mom said, well, I'll fix his I'll put him in Catholic school, right? And so, sure enough, that's what she did, and that was rough. That was a little rough, and I don't think they understood me much. And so by fourth grade, my mom was pleading for them to keep me, and by fifth grade, I think they had had enough. And in hindsight, I was never a bad kid. I just was kind of rambunctious, and I guess today you'd probably even consider it to be ADD or something, or some. But now you fast forward in the high school, and now in hindsight, the IQ and such, I was just bored. I think I was bored and just wasn't engaged. But I will say the Catholic education definitely taught me some things. But when I got the results of that basic skills test back, that wasn't too impressive. But that's okay. It didn't mean anything to me because, again, I'm signing up and I had to take remedial and developmental courses for a year and a half to 2 years before I could even take now what I know is a 100-level college course. It didn't mean anything to me. I was still...
You were just like, more time to hang out with these kids.
Exactly. And you will see as we go along how this evolves. So this whole thing about becoming a doctor is not that impressive.
Oh, boy.
You, right? So
we're not burying the lead, are we?
Yeah. So as we go on, I'm taking a 100-level college. Finally, let me back up. I'm starting to take these remedial and developmental courses along with my friends, okay? All of us never have had anything successful academically. So we're starting to take these classes, and something starts to tick a little bit that I can actually learn. Like for the first time, it was interesting.
Any particular class that kind of...
Sciences started to resonate with me for some reason, and then I started to think about what is it I like to do. Well, I was always athletic. I tended to work out all the time, and so something about taking care of people. And early on, it started to evolve into I may be an athletic trainer. So I started to hedge towards some health sciences and would take those classes. And as I was going on, all of a sudden my friends were like, "Man, you got an A? Like, are you studying? Like, Who are you?" Yeah, it was this metamorphosis that took place. And what I found happened was once I got engaged in academics, the academics took on a competitive nature that sports did before that. And it was really neat because you were sort of like this underdog. And so you had these other individuals who were maybe more your prototypical college students, and then there was me. And then it became this competition between who would mess up the curve. And so I just started working really hard. And as I worked really hard, I started getting better grades. And then as I started getting better grades, it was contagious. I started getting better. And I had no idea how to study or anything, and started to learn how to do that. And as time went on, it just kept kind of building upon itself. And then at some point, I knew I had to leave there. I couldn't stay at Gloucester County College forever.
I mean, you could have, I guess, but then you have to be a productive citizen.
Yeah, which I was there. So to give you an idea, so after the first year there, my friends and I were sitting in the student center over there, and we see the signs on the wall that say that there's a student government president election coming up, right? And we see the guy that's running, and he's dressed really nice, and he's handing out pamphlets and doing everything. We're just kind of observing him. And my friends and all look, and we go, "Well, you could do that." I'm like, "Yeah, I think I can." And so, sure enough, my friends and everyone, they start rounding up everything. Next thing you know, I'm elected the student government president at Gloucester County College.
That's fantastic.
I have no leadership knowledge. I have nothing. Now with this, I get my own office. I get a secretary to help me. It was wonderful. And then I started having to lead meetings. I had to do things. So it was this early introduction to handling meetings.
And leadership in
general, people skills, working with people. And so, I was a student government president there for a year. We still haven't got to how the heck I got to Rowan.
Yeah,
right?
where did you?
Yeah, so
where do we fit in this?
I told you
puzzle,
it's a very convoluted thing that evolved for sure. When I was coming here eventually, and I came here because I didn't know any better. I didn't know where else to go. There was nothing around me saying, choose these schools. This is what you might think of. So, of course, I was comfortable with the area. So I knew where I could go. I knew where home was. And so I was applying to come here as a transfer student. And I knew that at this point I had kind of wanted to be athletic trainer. Now maybe that I was getting a little bit better in classes, maybe now I'm evolving into physical therapy. So I decided I'm going to come to, which at the time was Glassboro State, and I'm looking through all of the classes. And the one thing I see on there that I'll never forget, it said calculus. At this point, after 2 years at Gloucester County, actually 2.5, almost 3 years, I think I was there, I had taken algebra once or twice or 3 times, and I always dropped it. I just couldn't do it. Now, mind you, I'm doing chemistry. I took chemistry 1 and chemistry 2 and got 2 A's in those.
So you have the ability to do the math.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but what I didn't realize by doing the chemical equations, I was solving for a variable, but I had no idea what I was doing. I was smart enough to befriend this gentleman who moved here from Somalia. And he was seeking his citizenship here and going to school. His name was Lou. That was his American name he had taken. Now, he could not write a sentence to save his life in English, and I didn't know how to do chemistry. So he and I literally, all 2 semesters, worked together.
So smart.
So he would teach me, not necessarily algebra. He would say, look, if they're looking for this in the question, this is what the formula looks like. And so I just I memorized all those. And then I would help him write sentences. And that's how I got through chemistry, 1 and 2 with an A. And my anatomy class, the same thing.
Where's Lou now? Do we still keep in touch
I
with
don't
Lou?
know. I do not know where Lou is.
You know what?
He's a
We're going to
life
track him.
changer.
We should track Lou down.
Yeah.
You know, but I will tell you, wherever Lou is, I bet Lou is doing great. I bet he's doing amazing. He was an amazing person, and when you talk to someone like that and you get an appreciation of their plight to get here, amazing, just amazing. I'm sure he's doing well. And so I was trying to take algebra, and I just couldn't get it. And so when I saw that calculus, I'm like, God, how am I going to get the calculus? I can't even get through algebra at this point. So that summer, I was transferring in. And so what I decided to do that summer, at this point, I'm working in California at my dad's company. And so I bought a textbook. I went to University of Berkeley, and I went to their bookstore, and I brought an algebra textbook. And that summer, I taught myself algebra. I did the algebra textbook from cover to cover 4 times that summer.
Okay, can we just say getting kicked out of kindergarten, then 5th grade, but then he's like 20 buying algebra books over the summer. What?
I love algebra too.
Do you?
I love algebra.
Oh, no.
I'm a huge fan.
I ended up loving it, and the reason I loved it, not just Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 and Calculus 1, what I've learned is I like when things are provable.
That's exactly what I think.
I don't like
about
when
it.
they're not black and white. And what I learned about algebra or calculus or trigonometry or any of them, all you have to do is prove it. You have the opportunity to have 100 on every single test. So there is no subjective grading. When I would take classes that had a subjective input from somebody writing, what they...
Like psychology.
I hated
or
it.
some of
Oh,
those.
I love that.
No, see, I
don't.
can't
You
do
just
that.
Me
make
either.
it up.
I'm with you.
I know.
That's a
I don't like
feeling.
gray area. I like black and white.
yes.
I need a very
Yes.
defined.
But for you, that's interesting because you have a very strong faith. So
Yeah.
to something that's not totally it's pretty provable. There's
Yes,
a
I was
big
gonna
book
say,
on it.
We could open up a whole. Yeah, 66.
But
66.
that's
books in one
interesting
day.
to me that you really like the provable point.
Yeah, no, I need that black and white answer. I need that finite point.
It used to drive me crazy when somebody would subjectively review something, because even now I'm very much black and white, math, science. There's an answer, and it's just fact. It just is what it is. It's
and your
not,
patients probably appreciate that, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, you throw in the human factor also, but that's why I enjoyed it. And once I got that, then it gave me the confidence to come back and enroll. And then I took the algebra classes and got an A. Then I'll never forget when I got to, now the whole time I had taken organic chemistry and got 2 A's in that, chemistry and A. So I was doing A's in just about everything, but I wasn't
Were
necessarily.
your parents like, holy cow,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
nut? What were you
So
doing the whole
here you go.
time?
This is how my parents react. All right, this is awesome. So the first time I come home and I want to go to Gloucester County College, I come home and I tell my mom. And now this was probably, who knows, the 5th thing in life I was going to do in about 5 months after graduating high school. So I come back to her probably in August. I said, Mom, I'm going to go to college. My mom said, college? I said, yeah. She goes, hold on a second. So she calls my dad. And she goes, college. Okay. Put him on the phone. And I said, yeah, Dad, I need about $200-300. I'm going to go to college. He goes, you're going to go to college? I said, yeah, I'm going to go to college. Okay. Put your mother back on the phone. And so I'm listening to them, and I hear my mom. She goes, "Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's just kind of go with it, right?" So my parents, my dad, I love him so much, but here was the expectations. The expectations is, listen, when you graduate from high school and you turn 18, I need you to do 3 things. 1, graduate from high school, don't be in jail, and don't have anybody pregnant. That was it.
The bar's pretty low. Right?
That was it.
Pretty low.
So when I turned 18, he's like, did my job. So
anything above that was a bonus.
It was a bonus. And so, when it came to college, they didn't have much to offer because they had no experience.
Sure.
It was a completely different world.
Right.
So they had nothing.
You're first gen.
First generation, absolutely. To this day, the greatest accomplishment ever in college was that A in calculus. And even now I can look at my transcripts and say, nobody can ever take it away from me. And so now, fast forward when you have kids and they're having challenges, and now I can say to them, my daughter was doing pre-calculus and saying how tough it was. I'm like, I did it. The other thing that had occurred as I was going through this, again, meeting people. I'm going to do some free time and figure out if I want to be an athletic trainer or a physical therapist. So I wind up in a clinic in Woodbury, a place then called Woodbury Sports Medicine. At the time, I start working with this guy. Never met him before. Kind of crazy. His name's Pat Croce. Right? I start working with Pat Croce. And this is when all of a sudden now Pat Croce is starting to train the Sixers players and the Flyers players. And, well, then Pat Croce ends up getting all these physical therapy centers and selling them to Nova Healthcare. And, but
then he did some TV.
He did
some TV spots.
Owns the Sixers. And so, again, it's this being my life is also being in the right place at the right time around the right people and recognizing greatness in people and seeing what they do and figuring out how they got it.
So did he kind of expose you to that world of
sports
medicine?
He did. And he was fantastic to me. And I was only there for maybe a month or two, but he was so energetic and so personable and also somewhat of a similar background. And you would see him evolving and creating himself and creating this brand and being really smart and making a difference. And, you can do this. That's what he told me. You can do this. And so it was really inspiring to see that.
One of the folks that maybe had impact on your life, maybe you can talk to Dr. Marr?
Yeah, Dr. Marr. Dr. Marr, so he, at the time, Richard Marr was the head of the life sciences department. And I had him for some classes. And Dr. Marr came to me going into our senior year. And he says to me, he goes, Mark, so what are you going to do when you graduate? I told him, I said, Dr. Marr, I'll be honest, I haven't even really thought about it. I said, all I want to do is graduate. I said, no one in my family's ever graduated from college. I just want to graduate. That's all I want to do. I don't care what I do after that. I would just like to do this. And he said to me, he said, well, why don't you consider going to medical school? And I was like, medical school? I'm like,
it's a lot more school.
I'm like, medical school? I'm like, I looked at him, I said, Dr. Marr, that's for really smart people, medical school. And he just kind of ran his hands through his hair. He used to have this, great head of gray hair. And he finally looks up at me and he says, Mark, you're close to being our valedictorian. And I looked at him and said, what's that? I had no idea what that was. No idea. And whether or not there was truth to that, I don't know. So he said, well, you're going to have to do something because you have about 160 credits. Again, me being as bright as I am, I said, is that a lot?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I was just taking classes. As a science major, without guidance, I felt that I had to take every class in that book.
That's awful.
That's
awful. That just
you needed to go see an advisor.
Yeah, but I never did. I didn't even know these services existed. Right. So I'm taking all these different. I was running out of sciences to take.
Yeah.
Right. So he comes to me and he goes, "This is a real issue because you don't have any of these other classes." From
the electives, from the liberal arts and
you didn't take any music courses.
No general ed, yeah.
Okay, so here we go to that one. He goes, you need to go take one of these. So I sit down and I look and I go, okay, film history and appreciation, 1 and 2. Well, I'm a science major. You can't take 2 without taking 1, of course, right? Because it's got to prepare you. So film history appreciation 1. Were you two fortunate to take that?
Absolutely.
Yes, of course.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
So from the beginning of the creation of a reel.
Let me just tell. Should I throw myself under the bus?
No, please, because I'm going to do it.
Okay. I took that course.
Yeah.
Much respect to the RTF department
Yes.
and the rich history of film, very important. black and white silent films Friday morning.
Oh, no.
Didn't stay awake for a single class the whole semester.
Nosferatu?
Thank
Did you
God.
watch Nosferatu? That was like
Who knows? Maybe
Okay.
I did. Much praise to my good friend to this day, Joe Stoudemire, who did stay awake for the courses and taught them to me afterwards.
Very
God
neat.
bless him. But did you have a similar problem, Mark?
Oh my gosh.
Did you not like the film? Did you
So
not like-
think about this. I'm sitting in a film history appreciation class. I am math and science weighted.
Yes.
I don't know what I'm coming into, let alone, to your point, 16 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think we got to the silent films first, right? I think that was midway through
That
the
was
semester.
midway. Yeah, they took you through black and white.
Oh my gosh. It was so painful.
Yeah.
It was so painful.
It's not like movies are now.
Right. And then I learned, well, if you were taking history, then it ended with the beginning of the good movies, like in the mid 40s and
Yeah,
50s,
you're like,
you know,
oh,
like
man.
Orson Welles and
Yeah.
such. I'm like, wait, so you don't need to take one before two? No, not with the film. I'm like,
But that's the class where I fell in love with James Cagney. So
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
was
yeah,
at the very
yeah.
end of the class. You
very
recall-
end of
you
the
have
class.
a good memory.
But you know, even classes like that teach you to endure, right? Because I started to look at the university or just anything in life sometimes. There's these hurdles and these obstacles that are thrown in front of you. You have a choice. You can either complain about it and let it define you and move you in a different direction, or you just recognize it for what it is and go, it's 16 weeks of my life and I'll
I
get
could
over
do
it.
anything
Yeah.
for 16 weeks.
Exactly,
right?
and just move past it, and so I guess that in some way plays a role. But so anyway, when he said that to me, we had to move some classes around. So my human biochemistry actually became an elective.
Good. Yeah, well, no, because for most of us, it would be. Human bio was. I did take human bio, and we studied Golgi apparatus.
Yeah,
And
the
meanwhile,
Golgi. There
I
you
just
go.
want to say Golgi apparatus on a podcast.
Oh, you just
Yeah,
you
I
just
don't know
excited
what
me.
that is. I know.
Gosh, you just excited me. Oh my goodness,
that was good.
This
That
is-
was good.
this is
That's the only thing.
fantastic.
That and I don't know. Centrioles.
Ah,
Does anything for you?
look at you. Look
at
at
that.
you.
It's all coming
Oh
back.
my God. What do you got this guy in the studio for?
Yeah, I know.
He's
You know,
brilliant.
he's-
I didn't even realize I had this so
But can you explain it?
No.
So you know the word. I bet Mark can
I
explain
think we need to check his IQ.
Yes. And don't make me say endoplasmic reticulum right now.
Oh my goodness.
See this? All right, we're done. All
right.
I used all my education. Thank you.
it. So you had to
Delve
fill out your schedule so
I
you
had to
could
fill out-
actually walk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
And then did you want what was your plan after walk? Did you have no plan? Did you
So by
wait
then I
before
did.
you went to medical school?
So by then I did. So he had told me, Dr. Moore, again, that's why he played such an instrumental role. And I will always say the greatest thing he did for me was he identified in something in me that I did not see at that time. And so he said, well, look, I want you to take the MCAT. And of course, I had no idea what the MCAT was. He said, I'm going to get you a scholarship to go to the Sylvan Learning Centers on the weekend if you'll go and prep for the MCAT. I'm like, okay, no problem. And so I did. And so I did that for about 9 months. And I took the MCAT, almost didn't do it because I fell asleep in my dorm because I was an RA. And my alarm didn't go off, and my friends had to eventually break into the dorm and throw a rock through my window to wake me up that morning. And they threw me in the back of their 40 XP with a cup of coffee. And away we went to, I think it was down at Stockton, we went to take the MCAT test. And so we took it, and you know what? To this day, I have no idea what my results were because they were sent to Dr. Moore.
Wow.
They were sent to him, and he came to me, and he said, okay, so where would you like to go? And I said, I don't really know what you mean. And he said, well, look, you got options now. You got options. We can do this. And one thing fell into place. And for me, to your point, there was no plan. So the plan then was, so I can go back to school for 4 more years? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm pretty good at school. I can do this. This life is pretty good. And I had no plan. And so it just kind of evolved, and he made it happen and helped me with selection and choice, and then I sign up, and there we go.
Thank goodness for mentors, right?
Yeah.
They just picked you up, and he was like, "No, we're gonna get you."
Yeah,
in."
look at the trajectory that the
It's
impact he had on
Well,
you.
he changed my life, my family's life, kids' life, you name it, and that's why I endowed the scholarship in his name. So I'm Al, and then I went to University of Pennsylvania for an internship, and then Thomas Jefferson University, and then University of Texas Health Science Center in San Antonio. So you can imagine the requests I get for alumni donations. You know, and on Facebook.
Don't pick them all up. Don't pick them all up.
Nothing matters quite as much as your undergrad experience, right?
Absolutely. You know, I'm from Penn, and everywhere, and you're always getting, because they have this social profile, and so it's always sending you things.
Now, before we jump to like your professional and what your career space is now, we're going to jump into a spot that I'm going to geek out a little bit, Jess.
Yeah,
are you okay with this?
I'm going to take a rest.
No, you got to jump into this world too. So many people, including myself, didn't know this about Mark until the other day when we did. I guess we can call it like a pre-interview. I guess I would have called you out of the blue, but we were happened to be talking, and he had, I'm coming back to the area, and I said, oh, he's like, you're never going to believe what I'm coming back for, and I said, well, what do you come back to Philly for? Because he lives in Texas. It's a wrestling reunion show, and I was like, all right. Tell me more. What do we got here? So I'll let you sort of pick up the coverage because while you were in residency in medical school,
so this is just another chapter in this thing I call life, right? So as I'm a resident at Jefferson, I end up winding up with a patient. And it's interesting. I met him at the gym working out, and I initially almost thought he was probably homeless. I'm not sure. You can see it from the character, right?
I can, yes.
And he's limping around. And then, of course, I'm like, hey, can I help you with anything, right? And he ended up having a foot issue and such. And so I ended up taking care of him. Well, as I'm getting to know him, he's a professional wrestler, and he goes by the name of Raven. And so we end up befriending each other, and I'm working with him. But while he was injured, he could not wrestle. And at the time, he was the heavyweight champion or the top guy for what was then called ECW, or Extreme Championship Wrestling. And that was out of South Philly at Swanson and Rittner. And this was a local promotion that ended up being a national promotion. And so he said to me, and I knew nothing about wrestling, nothing. I had watched it some as a kid, but outside of that, I never really paid a lot of attention to it. So he says, you need to come and talk to Paul Heyman, or Paul E., who runs the company, and you need to let him know that, look, I'm legitimately injured. I'm not, quote unquote, working him or BSing him. So you need to come and do that. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I come and I meet Paul E., and I said, look, I'm here to tell you that he's legitimately injured, and so whatever that's worth, right? And so I guess he takes that with a grain of salt. And again, this is right place, right time. So as I'm standing there talking to Paul E., the State Athletic Commission walks up to him and says, okay, Paulie, you need to have a doctor on site tonight because, that's State Athletic Commission. And Paulie didn't have one. And so he said to me, he goes, hey, could you do this tonight? And I'm like, do what? He said, stay here and, be this, what the medical commission's asking for. And I'm like, I don't know. And so I thought about it, and I went aside. And Raven at the time, he said to me, he goes, listen, he goes, if he's going to if he's asking you to do this, make him pay you. I said, okay, sure. He said, how much should I make him pay me? And he told me. I said, all right, well, whatever. So I went over and I gave him a price. He goes, done. So he writes me a check, and I signed a piece of paper. Didn't think anything more of it. And so I'm there that night, and I'm watching this that I never watched before. And then one of the nights I'm there, I'm up on this platform, and I'm watching, and there's the wrestling ring, and there's 3 levels of tables stacked on top of each other.
And remember, this is called Extreme
Championship Wrestling.
This is going, yeah.
All right. So, and then suspended above the 3 layers of tables, there is a platform hanging from the ceiling. Right?
Doesn't everybody have that?
Of course, right? I mean, this is like something a little different, right? So as I'm watching this, you see the wrestlers, they're fighting, they're doing their thing, and then all of a sudden they're starting to climb this platform. And next, they're 20 feet above the ring, fighting up on this platform that's hooked to the ceiling with chains, and it's swinging back and forth. And I'm just sitting there sort of like just looking and going, okay, this is interesting. The next thing I know, the one guy at the time, his name is Tommy Dreamer, he punches the other guy, and the other guy goes flying off the platform and splats down through the 3 layers of table onto the ring.
Oh, my gosh.
That's what I thought. And I sat there, and I thought to myself, I think I just watched somebody die.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I really did. I really, really thought that I watched somebody die. And I come running down there, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, first of all, he's got 3 layers of tables all over him. I can't even get to the guy. He looks like an earthquake had occurred here. And his name was Primetime Brian Lee. That was his name, Primetime Brian Lee. And so we finally get to him, and there were other people that were paramedics and everything that would work this with us. And they were more on the inside of wrestling than I was. And so part of the storyline was, of course, to take him out and, make everything much more dramatic. But at that point, I was scared to death. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with this.
Yeah.
This is crazy. Like, somebody's really going to die here. Well, they're like, well, yeah, 2 weeks ago, Terry Funk and Cactus Jack, they set the ring on fire, and, well, that was somewhat of an issue. But we got it out. I'm like, okay, no, not a problem, not a problem. But long story long, that evolves into a 5-year relationship where I started doing it each weekend. And so I would help coordinate the coverage of the medical care for them. Then we started to travel. Then we started to go national. Then there were pay-per-views. There was, and it was really...
So you were traveling with the shows as they were moving across country.
So are they actually getting... This is where I get...
Yeah.
No. You ask these questions.
Okay, so wrestling is... Okay, so it's made to believe like it's real, but there's rehearsal. Like that's probably not the first time that person fell
Are you
through
saying
those.
wrestling is not real?
What?
So it's probably not the first time that guy fell through 3 tables, right?
Where are you going next?
So this is a kid-friendly show.
You're going to tell me Santa Claus is
No,
not
if you
real?
don't believe, you don't receive.
That's exactly.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
But so were they actually getting hurt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. What a boy! I'll tell you, what a respect I ended up getting for these folks. To your point, yes, it is predetermined. It's choreographed, and a lot of it is made up on the go. A lot of the wrestlers will do what they call it in the ring. And so, because some of it has to be improvised. And so when you see them tie up or do things, they're calling what they call spots or things to do next. And
if I'm the person getting tied up, I'm like, whoa, this was.
Well, I'm sorry. When I mean tied up, meaning they engage each other and they kind of hold each other a little bit.
This
sorry.
wasn't in
Yeah,
the
no, I didn't mean physically.
Was this on page 3?
All right, I didn't mean that. I mean when they did.
I didn't see this on page. I didn't see this on page 3.
That's funny. But it's amazing when you really start to understand them, how they make this seem to flow so well. And then there's this part of it to where you're building these characters, and the character's job are to engage the audience and get the audience to actually care that you're doing something, as opposed to yawning. But to your point, yeah, it may be choreographed and predetermined, but those things that they do, these guys and girls, they're really getting hurt. I mean, these are legitimate. And now that I'm 20 years or so removed from ECW, I'm still friends with all of those folks, and not many of them are standing too upright these days. I mean, there's a few, but they gave their heart and their soul for that business and for that company, all for the ability to entertain for the audience and for the product, and then also to try to go to the next level, to what then was WWE or WCW.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so I ended up working with them for over 5 years, and it was a really interesting experience. So I would go from University of Pennsylvania or Thomas Jefferson Monday through Friday, and then to the ECW arena at Swanson and Rittner Friday and Saturday.
And how were you doing that while traveling the country?
It was very interesting. So I had other residents and such, so I would have to set it up to where I would get coverage when I would be gone. And when I would travel, it was interesting. So when I would end up traveling, if we were going to Ohio or Detroit or something, I didn't do anything with the state then. So I was just traveling now as part of ECW. So Paul would just, get your plane trip, send on the bills to me. And interesting, a lot of folks in ECW didn't get paid. Mm-hmm. I never got anything not paid, which is unbelievable. If anyone is listening to this knows the history of it. But it just became really it gave me the ability to have some insight into a different part of life that was very intriguing and interesting, and yet respected what they all did and what they were trying to do. It's sort of like I was above watching it and just viewing it from the outside in and just seeing how all this worked. It was really interesting. And then, of course, many of them went to WCW and then said WWE, which some are still there today. Like Paul Heyman's there now. I think he's managing Roman Reigns now and Brock Lesnar. And
he's got some sort of storyline that's been on forever and a day.
And but it's neat. It was a neat time in life, and it was really interesting to do it and fun, and it provided a lot of unique opportunities and sort of like when I was telling you about my brother. My brother Jack he's a lead singer of two bands from the 80s and the 90s. One is called Night Ranger, and their biggest hit was Sister Christian. And then
that's exciting for a radio buff.
Yes, I love that song.
Yeah, Sister Christian.
That plays a lot on these airwaves.
Does it? Yeah, Sister Christian. And then in the early 90s, a band called Damn Yankees, which was Jack Blades and Tommy Shaw from Styx and Ted Nugent.
So life takes you to San Antonio, where you are now.
Yeah, which is another just weird thing, you know. So there was another mentor there, and he had, a year before that, he had said to me, you need to come to San Antonio and do my fellowship. And I said, Dr. Harkless, I'll do that, because again, one thing I will say, this is why I say about becoming a doctor, I was in no rush to go to work. Okay, I was in no rush to go to work. I was really enjoying school. I was applying to do fellowships, and he called a week or two late, and I had accepted one in Atlanta. He called a week later and goes, I'm calling you because I want to get your, come down. I said, geez, Dr. Harkless, I'm really sorry. I said, I accepted one in Atlanta already. And he said, well, that's fine. You go do that one, and then you come here after that. And I said, okay, sure. So I went to Atlanta for a year, and then after Atlanta, then I went to San Antonio, at San Antonio. And that's, and I never thought I was going to stay there, never. Texas, and, my idea of going to Texas from being up here is, man, oh, man, there's tumbleweed, there's horses, what am I getting
the stars
myself?
at night, they're big and bright.
Yeah, what am I getting myself into with going? So I never thought I would go there and finish that fellowship, and we can go on from there about, again, how another opportunity, right place, right time, right person, sets the stage for something bigger as life goes on.
And
so
you've been a team foot and ankle consultant for some small teams like the San Antonio Spurs, San Antonio FC soccer team. I mean, you've really tied your love of science and
pretty neat
and athletics together pretty nicely. Put a nice bow on that.
But it's interesting. All of those things are really neat to do, and it's such a privilege to really even be able to work with some sports franchises like that at that level. And the San Antonio Spurs franchise, it's really a special organization. It truly is. I would say that our experience and our success, or whatever we have it, over the last 20 years from this practice I started, was rooted in the Spurs organization. Mm-hmm. And again, follow a winner, emulate what they do, find out what they do and why they do it. And the Spurs organization from top down is a unique organization. It really and truly is. And so the culture and the values that were in the Spurs organization naturally just infected our group, and the way that we conducted business, and the way we did things, and the way we handled people, and the way we extend health care, the way that we don't pay attention to what insurance you have. We have an obligation in community. And so our values have really paralleled the Spurs, and I think success comes with that, and success is always relative, right? But I guess happiness and fulfillment. And so as the Spurs went, so did we. And for me, taking care of the Spurs, that wasn't me. That's me, again, being in the right place, right time, right person.
But you got a lot of different ones. A lot of...
Yes.
Why
don't we talk about it?
Yeah. I mean, you were in a lot of right places at the right time.
It seems that way.
So I feel like you got to give yourself some credit for that. Because
they're not picking up trash.
Yeah, you're not. You know what I mean? You're not. I feel like it sounds like you were really a go-getter. When you found your passion, you really stuck with it, and you were a go-getter, and you put yourself in those places. So that's got to give yourself. There's that first gen. You're still not sure.
That's right.
But look at all this. I mean, this is the longest.
You actually our little briefing packet. We usually it's one page. Not to the other alums were amazing, but this is I have 3.
Yes, 3 pages of notes of all your research and publications and your training and your consulting work. And what is your favorite thing of all the things? Is it the consulting? Is it the teaching? The writing?
It's the people. It's the people. I am so blessed. I mean, I get to go to work every day, and I get to interact with 25 to 30 patients. And when you really think about that as a healthcare provider,
it's a lot of people in a day.
It is. It can be, but I always try to put myself in the patient's position. And And I've been a patient too, right? And to go to a doctor, and I'm a specialist, so you one, you got to find somebody, you've got to trust somebody, you've got to make a phone call, you've got to drive, you got to take time off of work. There's a lot of things you have to do just to commit to get to that appointment. So when people come in to me and see me, I'm never in a rush to get rid of them. And I tell my patients all the time, I will never run on time. Yeah. Never. I just never run on time.
Just come to your appointment late. But because you'll give them the time they
absolutely.
need.
Which is what anybody wants.
Yeah. And so with that, what I always say is that I happen to take care of problems of the foot and ankle, which I love doing, right? But I take care of people. And I will tell you, taking care of the problems of the foot and ankle for me at this point in my career, that's usually figured out within 2 to 3 minutes. The other 15 to 20 minutes is me engaging them with something that I find interesting.
How did you get to the foot and ankle? Is that...
Yeah. I'm glad you asked because I got this issue. Rob's looking
while you're here, free consultation.
I'm a runner, so that's this left thing. I got this.
Again, this is one of those things that I wish that I could tell you there was something definitive in my life that said I made a choice to do this. It didn't. These are things that just kind of fell in my lap, and this is how it went.
Do you have any advice for us people with feet and ankles?
That might be the greatest question that's been ever asked, ever. Not even on this podcast, but possibly ever.
Well, Rob runs, which I can't say.
I do run. I run. Yeah. And obviously there's a lot of issues in that space, and trying to make sure you have the right running shoes, and they have hip strength because that affects everything. It's very, I had physical therapy a couple years back because I thought I was having some knee issues. So I thought, all right, going to the physical therapist, they'll go right for that left knee, right? So I was, and this is going to sound ridiculous, so you can laugh at this, but I really wanted an MRI.
You did?
Right? I did.
Of your Frank?
Dr. Google. Dr. Google came in to see me.
They didn't want to give me an MRI. And I was like, no, I'm getting an MRI. So the night before.
And your insurance was like, no, you're not.
No. So I finally get one doctor to get me the MRI script, right? So I said, he's going to see something. So the night before my MRI, I go to the gym and I run as hard as I can for 3 miles. Because I'm like, I'm going to inflame this. We're going to see this for real. We get in there and the guy basically comes out. He looks at everything. He goes, well, it's just like an age thing. You're fine. I was like, I am not fine.
Old.
There's something else.
About
I know. He's like, the meniscus. I was like, of course, the meniscus. But so like, how do you work in that space?
And this goes back to why do I like to do sports medicine? So sports medicine to me is really neat. And then, as you point out, some of these different levels, right? Whether or not it's a Division 2, 3, 1, professional teams, Olympic teams, whichever you know. And what you find is that in order to be really successful in this, as you go up in these levels, let's say from young people to middle-aged to whichever to these level of athletes, what I tend to find is our margin of error gets smaller and smaller, right? So your expertise has to be better and better. So you would hope that would be the benefit of what you would gain as the regular person, you, Rob, running, that when you go and run, that when you see the sports medicine specialist that you know is known for knees, that he or her is bringing that same level of expertise that they would be giving to the professional athlete for you, right? And that's what I like to do. Because when you start working with these higher level athletes, as I say, the margin of error is a lot smaller.
Sure.
And so your accuracy needs to be really on. And so what I've learned is that, because I teach other residents now, and I tell them when you practice sports medicine, anyone can treat or diagnose sport-related injuries. But there's 5 questions you should be able to answer after each one. And this evolved from working with the Spurs because I found that what was being asked of us and what we needed to be able to provide. Because I learned that coaches don't necessarily mind injuries, of course. They like to have predictability. So if the player is out, that's fine. I got plan B. But when can that player be back, right? So they like to do it. If not, then they're on the training staff, and we go from there. So what I learned very early on in my career was that there was a few things that they needed. And so these are my 5 tenets of questions. And this is applicable to anyone, your audience, you, anyone. And I tell patients this. Here's what you need to ask your doctors. And that is, if you're going for, let's say, a sports-related injury, right? And number 1 is, what is my diagnosis? What is it? What is it? Is it 1? Is it 2 diagnoses? And write it down, right? And then that diagnosis or diagnoses, what's the severity of it, right? Because doctors, we like to grade things. And if we grade them, that allows us to be able to determine how to treat them and how to get, and so you need to know what your diagnosis is. What's the severity of it? So the classification, we like to use 1, 2, or 3, or mild, moderate, severe. Vagueness doesn't work in professional leagues, right? So we need to know exactly what it is, what's the severity, what's the proper treatment for it based on evidence-based medicine. Then number 4 is most important, and every athlete has this, even your high school athletes, middle school athletes, you. Number 4, when can I play again? Mm-hmm. When can I play? Yeah. That's the number one question we get from all sports people to come in. And then 5th is a little bit more important to the professional athletes because of the agents and contracts, and that is, what's the long-term ramifications of this injury? So even if you know what it is, you diagnose it, you treat it perfectly, you heal them, they recover and they play, but what's the long-term ramifications of it? So when a player comes up and maybe they're on a 3-year contract, they're good for 2 years, but what are they in their 3rd year, right? What are they? So you have an ACL tear, you have an Achilles tendon rupture. What is the long-term outcomes of those? So, and that, as we can see now in professional sports, the money is so big, and now the money is getting really big in college with NIL. So they need to know that, because if somebody has that significant injury, Tommy John surgery or dislocating shoulder or something, well, boy, are we going to sign that athlete for another 5 years of $150 million? What do you think it's going? You think that injury is going to last? What do you think, Doc?
Do you get agents and
absolutely
and
absolutely.
managers reaching out to you like, what's the skinny on this player? What are they worth investing?
It's really interesting too when we
Are you allowed to give their information? Well, I guess
no,
there's got to be some sort of...
No. Usually, no, we don't. What we can divulge is things that have already been made public, right? We can do that. So if an agent or a player or their family decides to make things public, then we can talk about it. And I've been contacted before to say, hey, what do you think about so-and-so's injury or so? And then I can give my lowdown on it. But so that's what's significant, those 5 things. And I think that really separates people out. So to me, it's no different than you as a father or mother or whomever, because I tell all my patients, because the name of our practice is Sports Medicine Associates. So I'll have people that come in, they go, God, I'm not an athlete, but I'm here. I'm like, but you are an athlete. Because if you read in my bio, what I will say is that every one of us are an athlete at some point, because the sport's called life.
Yep.
And you're going to either choose to compete in life and get up every day and compete in life, or you're going to start to die. And so life is a harder sport than anything we'll play in high school, college, or professional. Getting up and going to work and having a sore knee, a sore back. I mean, everyone has that, right?
I got it now.
Right? That's me too. Me too. But that's
I like that. I can consider myself an
you
athlete.
are,
That's
but
not
you,
something
but
I've
you
ever
are.
considered myself before.
And let me, so since you brought it up, Dr. Google, but how has your practice or how has your interactions with patients evolved? Because people maybe do come in and say, hey, I happen to Google and this is what I have. Because before
What happens when Rob walks in?
Yes, essentially, yeah. When I come into your office and say, my knee pain is this, and I tell you what it is.
I actually enjoy it. I do.
You like playing with them? Is that what it is?
No.
Silly?
It's pretty interesting. Now, I will tell you, probably 10 years ago, it was annoying. It was annoying because the internet was still earlier. But there are some really, really good resources on the internet. Absolutely. And I will direct patients to it now. When patients have a diagnosis from me, I'll give them a link to places to get more education, because I can only teach so much in a given setting. And I want them to understand what they got. As I will tell patients, look, my job is not to mandate something on you. My job is about to educate you about what you have, and here are your options. It's your body. You choose how you want to be treated. Here are your options, and I'll discuss with you the pros and cons of each of those and what you can expect. But I do like when they bring in information, because I would like to say to myself that as a professional who likes to consider themselves an expert in what I do, that you shouldn't be able to bring me anything that I'm not aware of, and that you shouldn't be able to bring me anything that I can't discuss with you. And if you do, we can discuss it.
Well, what you did do was come all the way from San Antonio to hang out with us. And we are so grateful. We're going to send you back to the warmth.
This is a great series, and I've listened to some of the things that you've produced. And as this morning when I was meeting with the president, for all of you all that are here, just and for WGLS and everyone, just thank you. Thank you as an alumni for everything you all do to promote the university, to move it forward, to make it a better place every day.
So one of the things I loved about the interview there with Mark is he seems to be curious about a lot of things.
Yes.
Right? And then the other piece of it was how he pulled in he applied a lot of the lessons that he's learned through his time in school and how to sort of navigate different elements of his life into practical application in life.
Yeah.
And that was just really, for me, kind of like, all right, he gets it.
He's a sticking point. I don't know. I was kind of stuck on the getting kicked out of kindergarten and all the trouble in school.
Is that because you have two younger ones and you're just worried about
I have two little
their
boys, and I'm like, oh my gosh, imagine they got kicked out of kindergarten.
Well, that means they become
so
doctors.
Stressful. I know, but that's the thing. It's you just really don't know what your future holds. And, sometimes I think you're, tagged like a troublemaker or something, and then you get put in this box. But you don't have to live in that box. You have all these endless opportunities out there. All it takes is maybe a change of thought or a mentor, like he was talking about, someone to believe in you and bring you up alongside of them and see potential in you that maybe you didn't see in yourself. So I think that's pretty neat.
Great to have Mark back here on the show.
And great to have him on campus.
And great to have
We're
him
not
on
letting
campus.
him leave. We're gonna what are you gonna do with Dr. Allen after you leave the studios?
I don't know.
What
should we do?
Opportunities are endless.
I know. There's so much to do here on campus these days.
We can maybe even crack open an algebra book for good old
I
time's sake.
was gonna say an algebra book wasn't what came to mind first, but
well, you never know what he'll have in store for you.
That is true.
So grateful to have Dr. Allen on today's show. We'll see you next time with another great Rowan alumni story.
You've been listening to Beyond the Brown and Gold on Rowan Radio 89.7 WGLS FM. You can find more episodes on your favorite podcasting platforms by searching for Beyond the Brown and Gold or Rowan Radio On Demand.